Tuesday night edition of the Anaheim Calling Podcast. Once again, we are here to discuss an undefeated Ducks season as the Ducks now move ahead to 3-0 after they defeat the Detroit Red Wings on the first game of an Eastern road trip, 3-1. So another 3-1 game to discuss as well. This one, though, not quite as pretty as the games that we saw before it. Nonetheless, a win. Jake, how you feeling about these undefeated Ducks?
Ooh, I feel a lot different this year than I did last year, that's for sure. I think that with this year's team, this isn't, and we'll get into it a little bit more because there are certain aspects of this game that weren't fantastic. But I think for the most part, you're seeing the positive signs, the things that we've been asking for, the things that we've been looking for a bit for this Ducks team for the past couple of years, with kind of looking at that transition game, kind of engaging the defense. And so even though, yes, this game probably was the least pretty out of all of them, I think overall I'm feeling really good right now as a Ducks fan, just simply because they're playing entertaining hockey. They're winning games. Yes, tonight they probably had to rely upon John Gibson more than you'd like to see, but then again, they have John Gibson.
And it's going to happen. I mean, you're not always going to play your best game. And Detroit looked, I don't want to say good, but they looked a lot more competent than I remember them in the last couple of years. They looked a lot speedier.
Yeah.
I forgot Adam Ernie got moved to that team.
Yeah.
And so they looked a little better to me and a little more threatening than they have in years past.
Yeah, and I mean, their top line is kind of the talk of the NHL right now, with Anthony Mantha having, 5 goals in the first 2 games of the season? And
yeah, with 1 4-goal game mixed in there.
Exactly. So that line is kind of booing them, and they had a bit of an impact on tonight's game, although we'll get into that actually kind of being taken back a bit. But I think the Red Wings may be a bit better. They're a team that has been rebuilding for a while, and so they are starting to see kind of the fruits of that labor with some of these younger guys coming into their roster and taking bigger roles, because, I mean, Dylan Larkin's been there a long time.
Yeah, Dylan Larkin isn't necessarily the kind of young, up-and-coming guy that we think him to be. But on that note, though, I mean, this is way jumping ahead, but I did want to point out that over the last couple of games, the only couple of games that we have to talk about, Josh Manson and Hampus Lindholm have been hard-matched against the other team's top line, and that trend continued tonight. They were up against the line of Larkin, Bertuzzi, and Mantha, the line that you just referred to, and they actually did quite well. They controlled the shot attempt battle, as opposed to the last couple of games where the numbers weren't quite as good. In this game, they actually, I mean, with just Larkin and Bertuzzi out there, the expected goals for percentage with Manson and Lindholm was above 70%. And so sometimes there's a little noise in these small samples, but that's definitely an encouraging sign, to say the least. So let's jump ahead here, though, and talk. At the beginning of the season, Max Comtois was not he was announced to have made the team, but then going into the home opener, all of a sudden he was sent back down. And so going into this road trip, maybe for the Ducks wanting to carry the full 23-man roster, he did get called up, and so he's going to be a part of the road trip. The only difference going to tonight's game in terms of the lineup was that Nick Ritchie would slot in as opposed to Nick Deslauriers. So any reaction to Comtois getting called up for the road trip? Do you think he'll play?
Yeah, I think he's definitely going to play on the road trip. I think the main reason he was called up and this started to come out was a lot of people reacted, I think, yesterday when Comtois it was announced that he was called up and there was no kind of subsequent move announced by the Ducks. Was the first thing everyone thought maybe Nick Ritchie would be moved. But at the end of
what a leap! What an absolute Olympic level leap that is.
Yeah, more so actually what happened, and this made complete and total sense, was Sam Steele had missed the previous game. The team had only carried a 22-man roster when he was healthy, and so when he went down, they were able to call up Isaac Lundestrom without having to make a subsequent player or roster transaction in terms of sending someone down. So Isaac Lundstrom being called up put them at 23 men, which is the maximum you can carry on your roster. So in order to call up Comtois, something had to happen. What made the most sense was Sam Steele going on injured reserve. And so it's one of those things that the logical situation was the actual one, which is Sam Steele went on to the injured reserve list. Max Comtois was called up, and it's essentially the Ducks not wanting to just carry a 22-man roster while they're going on this road trip, because when they're at home, it's pretty easy to have a 22-man roster, especially when you have the Gulls as your AHL affiliate. You can just call someone up if someone gets hurt. Whereas when you're out on the road, you want to make sure you have everything kind of at your fingertips. And so you want to carry a full roster in case, God forbid, someone gets hurt. You're playing in a back-to-back, which the Ducks are on this road trip, and your AHL affiliate is halfway across the country, and you're calling up a guy who then has to come into the lineup. It's just all of these kind of not ideal situations. So calling up Comtois, I think, yes, he's going to get into a game. I think they're playing a back-to-back, so I could see them utilizing the depth on those back-to-backs on one end of them. But I also think it's simply a situation where they wanted to take advantage of the full roster size for the road trip. And, I mean, the salary cap's not really an issue, so there's not really a reason to not utilize that full 23-man roster.
Yeah, I mean, I love that people, maybe mostly through wishful thinking, seeing that Comtois had called up, Ritchie had just been scratched, that, oh, this must mean that Nick Ritchie's on the block, excluding the possibility that maybe Sam Steele, who has been dealing with an injury, might just not play and didn't want to have guys. It's just, I don't know. Ducks fans have a very interesting relationship with Nick Ritchie, to say the least. Who, by the way, scored a pretty big goal tonight.
Yeah, and his goal really came from what you want to see from Nick Ritchie, and we'll get into it a bit more, but he scored a goal in front of the net, kind of being where he should be, being a big body, and he doesn't have the best hands in the world, but in tight, they're not bad, and so he's able to take advantage of it. And how do I best put this? Let me figure this out. So it's pretty funny how kind of the tide has turned on Nick Ritchie. At one point in time, so many people wanted him in the lineup because he was this high draft pick, and now he's been in the lineup enough. It's almost as if people still are expecting him to be this top 10 or number 10 overall pick. He should be scoring all these goals, doing all these things, and people almost have these unrealistic expectations for him. And we talked about this last year, I think, a little bit, but it's almost as if people started to adjust the way that they view Nick Ritchie and kind of just accept that he's a third and fourth liner that is on a cheap deal, will be able to pitch in with 15 to 20 goals in a season. That is something that's very valuable.
Yeah, I mean, draft position is a hell of a drug. Let's talk about the first period, though. Let's move into this recap. So it's kind of hard to really look at this game and give it a clean assessment without really looking at that first period. The Ducks have had some rough starts through these three games, but I think that this was probably the worst one, which is not all that surprising given that this is a long road trip. This is their first road game against a team that has been playing well. There was just a lot of chaos in their zone. There was a lot of bad turnovers. I thought that notably the Jacob Larson and Michael Del Zotto pairing looked really shaky, and their numbers weren't so good against San Jose either over the weekend. And I think part of the reason why Del Zotto remained in the lineup is that he scored a goal. I think that probably has a lot to do with it. And he did have some moments in this game that probably made up for that first period, but luckily, the Ducks came out of it without any goals against, but there were definitely moments where, especially that fourth line of Derek Grant, Carter Rowney, and Nick Ritchie just looked totally outmatched. And actually, at one point, we saw the first real instance of Dallas Eakins putting his lines into a blender. At one point, we saw Max Jones move down to the fourth line next to Grant Rowney, and then after that, we saw Ritchie, Henrique Kasha for a little bit. And then we also saw Troy Terry with Getzlaf and Shore. So Eakins was just trying to mix things up, I guess, because he did return to the lines that we saw at the beginning of the game. as this contest went on. But it's becoming, I don't want to say it's a theme yet because, again, it's only been 3 games, but what do you make of the fact that we now have we don't have much of a sample, but in each of these games, Anaheim just has not come out looking great. I mean, they were definitely better against San Jose,
yeah,
but against Arizona, they were not good. And I mean, that trend continued tonight.
I don't know if
do you put any stock in that? Because
No.
obviously you could also argue these are not really connected at all.
Yeah, so I think in the San Jose game, it was a pretty even first period, if I'm remembering correctly. The Arizona game, yeah, the first period was bad. Tonight, the first period was bad. I don't think 2 out of 3 games is enough of a trend for me to really fully buy in any significant way.
Well, especially because this game is just such a different context than the other game where they struggled there early.
And this was the first game on the road for the team. First travel, first all that stuff. I think maybe if you want to look for a trend, maybe it is something along the lines of they got a little bit of the jitters, just like they did in the first game against Arizona at home. And maybe it's a situation where it's a relatively young team. Probably, I mean, it is the youngest team that the Ducks have ever had. And a little bit of the inexperience showed with coughing up the puck in some bad situations, not exactly holding on to the puck, giving up bad turnovers, getting hemmed in their own zone, all these different types of things that came in the first period. And, I mean, the thing that the Ducks have going for them is you don't want to rely upon John Gibson long term. You don't want to force him into these bad situations. You want to play a style of hockey that will be conducive to positive future results. And that's kind of one of the things that we've talked about with all this is that the big thing with the Ducks last year was even when they were winning, it was getting completely outshot and doing it in a way that is not going to basically allow you to win games in the future. Yes, you're winning games now, but it's more it's more kind of by luck than anything else. I know I'm trying to eliminate using the word luck from my vocabulary, but for a short way of putting it, by luck. And this is not exactly that. This is a little bit different. They're playing better outside of the first period, but I also think you can survive having a first period like they did because you have John Gibson. So that's basically me a long way of saying that you don't want to rely upon John Gibson like they had to last year, but if you have to for a period or two, you still have him back there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 3 positives from that first period that I saw. Of course, like you already mentioned here, John Gibson was himself, and he was himself throughout this whole game. One thing that I did notice, a trend that's continuing, Brendan Gooley had a really aggressive forecheck at one point, and it actually helped keep possession alive for Troy Terry and Max Jones. And that's just something that we continue to see through these 3 games is that the blue line is a lot more involved offensively. Another thing that I saw that I thought was a positive, Hampus Lindholm has never really been kind of a flashy puck mover. He's a guy who makes the safe, not really like the safe play, but more just the high percentage play, right? Where he's just looking to connect, hit a guy in stride, not necessarily always looking to create a scoring chance or a rush the other way.
Yeah.
But in this instance, he actually had a really nice stretch pass all the way cross ice. So from the left boards at his own blue line to basically the complete opposite side, the right boards at the Detroit blue line, just before that blue line in the neutral zone. Really nice stretch pass, saucer pass to Carter Rowney, which allowed him to skate into the Detroit zone and get a shot off. And it's not really something that we've seen a whole lot of from Hampus Lindholm throughout his career in Anaheim. And so I don't know, it could just be a one-off, but again, the blue line has just been so much more aggressive this season that I'm kind of starting to see a theme build up here. But yeah, I mean, just not really a great first period from Anaheim. Like you said, they managed to survive, and that's the most important thing at the end of the day for this team.
Well,
go ahead.
One thing I do want to mention is that surviving is definitely a good way to put it. But I think the most positive thing I can say about those types of periods is that it doesn't seem like the Ducks are allowing that to last more than a period, which you want to play a full 60 minutes. But I think there is something to be said for going into the locker room, making adjustments, realizing what the other team is doing, and basically countering that and being able to make those adjustments, implement them, and then not have to basically rely upon John Gibson as much for the rest of the game.
Yeah, and honestly, some of these scoring chances in that first period were just really good offense. I mean, there's just sometimes not a whole lot you can do. Sometimes you got to give a little credit to the offensive players. There was one pass, I'm forgetting from who to who. It must have been the Larkin line, but the Ducks had every man covered perfectly. It was a low to high pass from behind the Ducks net. They had every lane covered. Everyone was on their man, and the puck just kind of happened to find a seam, and it went to the front for a scoring chance. Sometimes that's just going to happen. Whereas last year, when they had these types of periods, it was really agonizing to watch because it was just so many blatant mistakes, so many things that you had to point out. Whereas with this team, they haven't had a period like that yet, which is for our viewing pleasure definitely a lot more palatable.
Yep.
Another guy that I noticed in the first period in a positive way, Troy Terry. I mean, he just looks so much more confident with the puck on his stick. I think I'm pretty sure I've said that every podcast now this season, but just really throwing on the moves, entering the offensive zone and in the neutral zone as well. And it's something that makes the game more enjoyable to watch, because anytime there's a creative player out there who's willing to use their skill, and it's probably being encouraged to do so, it's just what you want to see. I think at this point, Terry is making this almost look routine. It reminds me a little bit of when Rickard Rakell really started getting confident with the puck about 3 seasons ago.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is what you want to see if you're the Ducks brass, because Troy Terry becoming an impactful offensive player is going to go a long way for this team.
Yep, completely. Yeah, I mean, we've kind of really said all that needs to be said on that first period. I was going to chime in with something more, but don't really think there is.
Yep. So on that note, we are going to head into our first break here. On the other side, we are going to get through this recap. Okay, back from the first break here. So second period for Anaheim, obviously, the like we talked about earlier, the bleeding definitely stopped. I think that they managed to tread water a little better. You see some of the 5-on-5 numbers start to even out a little bit, as opposed to being so heavily skewed to the Red Wings. Still probably not their best period, but all things considered, an improvement.
Yes.
Although the Red Wings did manage to get on the board first. This would actually come at the very end of the second period. And this is something that I talked about when we were talking about the first period, is that sometimes you have to give credit to the offense. And so on this play, I mean, first of all, Filip Hronek hits the post on a one-timer and then gets another chance and just puts up, and this is all as a right-handed shot, from the Ovi spot, just gets another chance at a one-timer and just puts a bullet past John Gibson. I mean, he's closer to the boards than he is to the net on this one-timer, and the puck goes far side. Maybe John Gibson should have gotten this because it was from such a kind of weird angle, but the shot was as perfect as it can be, especially as he's fading away. He's not even really stepping into the shot. And I mean, it's just a perfect shot. That's all I'll say. And sometimes you just have to tip your cap a little bit to the offense.
Well, and I think also just purely looking at that shot and kind of trying to analyze what happened in that situation, right before the goal was scored, you had a very similar shot where Hronek hit the post on the short side high. So exact same pass, exact same shooting location, everything like that. So you got to think Gibson may have been thinking he was going short-sided high again after that having just happened. So maybe that plays into it a fair amount. But you also have Gibson moving on that play. And so that's why that shot's so good and why it seemed like the Red Wings were really working for that with Hronek.
Yeah, I haven't really watched much of him, so I couldn't really say. But I've heard a lot about him from Red Wings fans, and I saw him and I'm like, I just looking at him with that beard, I thought, okay, the guy must be just typical Red Wings guy that we've been told is good, but is secretly older than we think. And I looked him up, and he's actually just 21. So he's one of their actual prospects that maybe will eventually lead the next charge for this Red Wings team. I don't know. I don't have a whole lot to say on the second period. I thought that it was a little bit of just kind of up and down. We saw the Ducks get some chances, or get a chance on the power play. Weren't able to convert on that. Actually, a couple chances on the power play. And I did think, actually, this is something that I wanted to bring up, that Troy Terry at one point was being used in the bumper spot on the power play. And I don't know if this was just a result of a scramble and guys ended up lining up that way, but he's just looking really confident wherever they put him on the power play, whether it's in the right circle, making plays or getting shots off, or even in the bumper slot. And for those who don't know, so most power play configurations now, it's a 1-3-1. So you have one guy at the point in the middle, one guy in the slot, one guy at each faceoff dot, and then one guy right in front of the net. And the bumper spot is the guy in the middle of all that, which is where Terry was. I'm referring to it. And he seemed really comfortable there making plays. Henrique was more of the net front guy. And so I'd be curious to see if that arrangement will last at all, though I think ideally you would prefer to see Terry in the right circle.
Yeah, I think that mainly probably just happened from the fluidity of the power play. But, I mean, one of the things from Terry that's been noticeable is how good his hands have been in tight. And so you give him some time and space, he's able to pick out a play, make the right play. But also if he's in a situation where he's in tight, he can draw guys to him and eventually make the pass to someone. So I think no matter what, where you put him, I think he's going to find success on this power play simply because you have that extra man. He's able to find someone. If he draws people to him, he can find someone. If they're giving him time and space, he has the time and space then to pick out the pass or the shot that he wants. And it's really becoming noticeable how influential he's going to be able to be on the play. And it's kind of exactly what I expected from him coming into the NHL and why he's a player that I've been so excited about for so long.
Right. Yeah. I mean, hey, it's early, but you're definitely not looking foolish here as you may have been at training camp last year with Troy Terry. Now he also, I think, is probably part of it is just physical maturity. He does look a little stronger out there, and also just, I mean, we talk about it a lot and it's hard to quantify, but the timing of the game, it doesn't come easily to some guys, especially if you're coming out of college hockey, which to me is, I know that there's some people who say that, for example, college points maybe project better to the NHL, whatever. I think the college game is just so much different than the pro game. Whereas, for example, good junior teams in, the CHL, I think that game resembles a little bit more the NHL games, and the transition can be a little easier for some guys. I feel like for college guys, the pace of the game is a little trickier getting to the NHL. And I think that now that Terry has had a lot more pro experience, not just in the NHL, but the AHL, he's just his decisions all just look a little more on time or sometimes ahead of time. Speaking of ahead of time, so the Ducks arriving late to the party, but fashionably late. So in the third period, less than 5 minutes in, Ryan Getzlaf puts on some nice pressure at the Red Wings blue line as they're trying to break it out, causes a turnover, and then just dishes it off to Jakob Silfverberg, who then leaves it for Hampus Lindholm, gets it on net, and Rickard Rakell is able to tip it home or gets a piece of it. I think it goes off his elbow, and it goes into the net. So after a couple of periods of not doing a whole lot, the Ducks are on the board, and that would make it 1-1. And although it seemed like, the Ducks were on the right track, they were buzzing a little bit, all of a sudden the Red Wings were able to come back and get on the board off a rush. The Ducks being really aggressive in the offensive zone as they have been, and especially in a tie game in the third period where they're trying to win. Puck gets turned over. The Red Wings are able to enter the zone. Dylan Larkin taps it in. That would make it 2-1. And at first it looked as though Dylan Larkin may have interfered with Lindholm. But then Dallas Eakins puts in an offside challenge and is batting 1,000 after the results came in. The play was indeed offside, and the goal was overturned, which was pretty much the turning point in this game, because afterwards Nick Ritchie would, like we mentioned earlier, get on the board, wins a battle in front, makes it 2-1. So pretty wild sequence of events there.
Yeah, and I mean, the Ducks came out to start the third period and were really taking the play of the Red Wings. You look at any sort of game flow chart and you'll be able to see that the Ducks were having the better of the play in that beginning of the third period. So that goal probably came, and it was definitely well deserved at that point in time for the Ducks. And then, like you said, the Red Wings kind of took advantage of a bit of a break. It was kind of a very hectic, very odd play in front of the net where the puck takes some weird bounces, ends up on Larkin. Yeah, it was Larkin's stick, right? I'm not going crazy there.
Yeah.
On Larkin's stick, and Larkin finishes it, but as it so happens, the play was offside. And, I mean, the Ducks took advantage of that.
It was not by a lot, though.
No,
It was a very, very close call, but hey, it's a black and white play at the end of the day.
My view of the offside penalty or offside review is, if you want to complain, well, then don't go offside. Or if people want to complain about it, the response to that is don't go offside. It's a cut and dry rule.
Mantha was as close to being onside while being offside as possible on that play. I mean, the difference between his skate entering the zone and the puck entering the zone was so marginal.
But
I mean, I just think there's no way you can do that over if you're him in that situation. I mean, maybe you wait a heartbeat extra, but it's just one of those plays where by the letter of the law, yes, he was offside and the rule was enforced properly. But
yeah. Well,
it's not a situation where the guy was egregiously offside.
But I mean, it's the rule. It's a black and white rule.
And that's the thing, is at the end of the day, you want, even if it's here's where I fall on this. So you could argue that offside really changed anything about the play. I mean, probably not. If Mantha just waits slightly there, it's the same result. But we have a blue line there for a reason. It's not a negotiable thing.
Yeah.
And so as long as it's constructed that way, then I'm fine with the rule being enforced properly. If you want that to change, then you need to change the offside rule entirely. It's not about the offside challenge.
Yep, exactly. So, he was offside. It was ruled correctly, and the goal was taken back. That is how it is ruled. And for those of you watching the recorded version or watching the stream or the recorded version of this, now up on the screen is the game flow chart, so you can kind of see what I was talking about, where there was a big spike downwards, which is going towards the Duck side at the beginning of that third period. So that's a sign of kind of what they were doing. Then after the goal, after the disallowed goal or the goal taken back, the Ducks really put on the pressure also. And then that goal came from Nick Ritchie, which was exactly the type of goal that Nick Ritchie should be scoring. He should be going to the front of the net. He should be using his big body and utilizing the fact that he has some decent hands. And so it was a point shot by Lindholm that hits a couple of bodies in front that ends up bouncing kind of perfectly to Nick Ritchie. And even though it bounced perfectly to him, that still was a pretty difficult play for him to be able
to corral it.
To corral it and be able to, on his backhand, put it behind Jimmy Howard. And so that's not an easy play, and you also can watch that play, and the Ducks have two guys in front of the net. It could have been easy for Ritchie to simply stay in the corner, to go circle around behind the net, but instead he drives the front of the net, where there was just a little bit of space in case a puck ends up slipping through, and that's what happens. And finds the back of the net, first goal of the season, and, I mean, that's kind of a statement by him after getting scratched last game.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I mean, getting scratched for Nick Deslauriers is just not a spot you want to be in. All due respect to Deslauriers, but as a guy like Ritchie, who has shown he is skilled at the NHL level, it's just not what you want. Now, of course, a lot of this is just a product of the Ducks having a lot of left wingers. Speaking of left wingers, Devin Shore with a really pretty assist on the goal that would make it 3-1 for Anaheim and really kind of salted this thing away. Shore with a nice just kind of zone entry, or at least is able to control the puck, moving in, and then just slams on the brakes, goes to his backhand, spins around, and then just kind of floats a pass into an area for Jakob Silfverberg, who then is able to shoot it against the grain on Jimmy Howard. Really a perfect shot.
Yeah.
I at first I thought, is that, could Howard have stopped that? But I think that's just a hard save for a goalie to make when a shooter goes against the goalie's momentum.
Yeah.
And that would make it 3-1. And one thing I did want to talk about here a little bit is that Devin Shore hasn't been spectacular to begin this season, but he's looked a lot more competent, a lot more involved offensively than I think many of us expected, because a lot of people had him pegged as a nice penalty killer, a nice depth piece, but really nothing more. And so far he's shown, he's only got 1 point, on coming from that play, but he has shown a little bit more offensive flair than maybe I expected. Any thoughts on how Devin Shore has looked through the first 3 games?
I think he's looked fine. I think he's definitely made a case for himself being in the lineup and staying in the lineup. And I think he's looked He's looked better so far in this these 3 games that he's played than he did in majority of the games that he played for the Ducks last year. I don't know how much of that is just purely on the eye test level, and you're gonna look good when you play with Ryan Getzlaf for 2 games.
Well, that's the thing is he's just in a completely different role. He's being asked to do something completely different, and so it's hard to make the argument that all of a sudden he's this offensive player. It's just, it might have just always been there. I think most guys that make the NHL at one point were the best player on their teams at some level. Meaning they were the top scorer. And so everyone has a little offense if they're asked to do so. The difference is the truly elite guys are the ones who stay in those roles. So we'll see with Devin Shore.
Yeah, and you look at his 5-on-5 stats for the night, 58% Corsi for percentage. And then let me check real quick on next. 64% expected goals for percentage. So while he was on the ice, the Ducks had more shot attempts towards the other team's net, more expected goals going towards the other team's net. So it was overall a really good night for him. The real question I have moving forward with Devin Shore after looking at those numbers is how much of that is him driving that play, how much of that is him being on a line with 2 pretty good play drivers in Ryan Getzlaf and Ondrej Kase. But the lines are kind of all split up tonight, so it's really one of those things that I want to see a bigger sample size before I can fully make not a decision, but
an
assessment on Devin Shore and whether or not he has improved, kind of where his game's at, because I think in this small sample size, he's looked really good.
Yeah, well, there is something to be said to being able to not just hang with good players, but maybe add a little bit as well. And that's a skill in and of itself. We've seen guys get put into those roles and not really thrive in them. I mean, I think one classic example was Nick Ritchie, and maybe this isn't totally fair because he was newer to the league, but immediately got put up with Getzlaf and Perry when he first cracked in, and it didn't really seem to work. After that goal, though, we saw the other side of Nick Ritchie, which we so often talk about, takes a penalty. And puts the Red Wings on the power play in a critical situation, trips Dylan Larkin in the neutral zone, and then the Ducks did a nice job of penalty killing. I thought it was interesting, to say the least, that Derek Grant and Carter Rowney were the ones that were out there. Although Carter Rowney you'd expect, but I don't know, Derek Grant, I don't know if the guy would put out there to defend the lead in a critical situation, but they did well. They, especially down low, Michael Del Zotto was out there as well, won quite a few battles. Really, the Red Wings were not able to get anything going on that late power play. They were, however, able to get chances after that, and John Gibson came up with at least 3 just golden saves, just pad saves. A lot of the shots, a lot of the one-timers were, low, flush to the ice, but his butterfly was just really on point, just getting those pads down in a hurry, sealing off the bottom of the ice and just getting across. And that's a tough movement for a goalie, going from behind the net out to the slot, because you're pushing outward, and so you have to control your momentum and not overextend. And he just looked really in control. His movements tonight, I thought, were, and again, we always kind of rush to do this, but I have noticed that a little bit with John Gibson this season, is that he's not overextending himself as much. His movements are a lot more succinct, and he's able to get to the spot and then react and make the save. And he was making some very difficult scenarios look really easy tonight. And that's some of the highest praise you can give a goalie, because sure, it's one thing to get there and make a miraculous save. Of course, we're all going to give you credit for that. But to also make it look easy, or to at least not make it look that difficult, that was impressive. And I thought that he was the Ducks' best player tonight. Yes, guys came up huge in that stretch of the third period, but without John Gibson, and we're probably going to say this a few more times this year, as we have many times in the past, but he put on quite the performance in the end of that third period especially.
Yep, and right now is actually a fun time to mention this. The new emote is live, and it is John Gibson with a halo over his head.
Yes.
So, for those of you watching the Twitch chat, throw that in, seeing as we're talking about Gibson, and he was insanely good. I mean, there's not really a whole lot more from this game to talk about. They killed it off really well, but when you look at John Gibson and look at some of the numbers from an individual perspective on the night, he had 31 saves on 32 shots. You look at the quality of the shots against. The Ducks gave up 2.154 expected goals against, and so essentially what that means for those of you that are new listeners, expected goals is basically different websites have their models that they put together where they assign a percentage to each shot taken in terms of the percent chance of it going in. So a 0.5 expected goal total means that there is a 50% chance of that going in if you eliminate shooter quality and goalie quality. So it's purely evaluating based upon the quality of the chance. So based upon that, eliminating all shooter quality and goalie quality, the Ducks should have given up 2.15 expected goals against per the expected goal totals. So by that logic, Gibson was better than what you would expect from an average goalie in the situation he was in by about 1.15 goals. So that's pretty good for one game. He basically saved one more goal than he should have.
And to put it in simpler terms, his save percentage so far this season is .971.
Yeah,
so
he's good. The Ducks have
he's stopping a lot of pucks.
The Ducks have only allowed one goal in every game so far this season.
Yeah, and he's faced above 100 shots, so it's not as if he's the save percentage is just kind of built on not facing a ton of action. He's having to work for these numbers, and it's pretty impressive what he's done so far. Again, though, even though the shot count is a little high, it doesn't feel like he's had to really, outside of this game, it doesn't feel like he's had to be quite standing on his head yet, which is what you want. You want to be able to save that card for as long as you can. All right, back from our second break. Apologies to our live viewers on Twitch. A little bit of technical difficulties there, but all things considered.
Yep, and also
little bump in the road.
Apologies to people watching on YouTube for the harsh jump cut probably right there from what we were saying to what we're saying now, but we're back.
No, there should be none. We'll see. We'll see how that ends up looking, but yeah, sorry about that. Sometimes these things happen when you do about 100 podcasts in a season. Mm-hmm. Little bumps in the road, little measly pebbles in our shoes. Okay, so we've done the recap. Now let's just talk about some overall impressions from tonight's game. So any performances that stood out to you, line combinations, where do we go from here?
I think this was the first night where we saw Rakell and Silfverberg really put it together on a whole. I think you look at their numbers as a whole in the night, and they're really impressive. They were the best Ducks in terms of on ice shot attempt or Corsi for percentage, expected goals for percentage. I mean, Silfverberg led the team with 68% Corsi for percentage. He was also at 71% expected goals for percentage. Both of them had a goal. Both of them got plenty of chances. So that line really seems to be working well with Silfverberg and Rakell, and you just kind of put whoever you want in the middle. I would not be shocked if when Sam Steele comes back, they're going to see even a better bump, because I think we talked about this bit last game, but Sam Steele is going to be a better fit for them than Lundestrom just simply because of where his game is currently at. And on Isaac Lundestrom, he only played 11 minutes on the night, so they kind of sat him for a bit. I believe, or actually no, his numbers line up with Rakell and Silfverberg. So about right for him on that that note. So he hasn't looked bad necessarily. He's helped them going, but I think Sam Steele is just going to complement them even more when he comes back.
Yeah, well, the thing with Lundestrom is that he just doesn't play on special teams. So basically the only ice time that he gets is going to be at 5-on-5, which is fine. I mean, I think that if you even go back to last season with San Diego, Dallas Eakins didn't use Lundestrom a whole lot.
Yeah.
He had him on the fourth line when he first got sent down there. And so that's fine. It's a learning curve for the young player, and I'm sure that when the time comes, he'll have a bigger role. But yeah, his role tonight was really confined to the 5-on-5 situation, whereas I think Sam Steele, has been used on the power play in the past. So that's probably what we'll see once he comes back. A bit more of a sour note here. One thing I did want to point out, Michael Del Zotto and Jacob Larson, it's only 2 games. Of course, you got to throw that in there, but they haven't really been good in those 2 games, at least at 5-on-5. They got outshot attempted tonight, 6 on-ice shot attempts at 5-on-5 and 14 against. And the expected goals for percentage, 48.8%. So the shot quality wasn't necessarily as bad, but still not in their favor. And so it's not a huge deal because those two are not playing a ton of minutes at 5-on-5. But overall on the night, this is a shocking statistic to me. Michael Del Zotto played over 20 minutes, just over 20 minutes and 12 seconds. But I don't know what to make of that. Of all people, Michael Del Zotto, and he didn't really play a whole lot in special team situations. So a lot of that was just coming at 5-on-5. He had 17 minutes at 5-on-5 tonight. I mean, I'm trying to think. Maybe it was due to penalties that he ended up being out there more.
Yeah.
Or just getting stuck out there. But it's not exactly what I envisioned.
No,
in terms of Michael
not.
Del Zotto's role.
It's definitely not. So, I think it's time, though, to throw us to some questions from our Twitch chat. So,
let's do it.
Let's go through this little bit of a spiel. So, for those of you watching the recorded version of this or listening to the recorded version of this, we do a live show each and every time at twitch.tv/acpod. And that's a place where you can support us in a way that's completely free to you. And that is if you have Amazon Prime. If you have Amazon Prime, you do get one free Twitch Prime subscription each and every month. You do have to hit that subscribe button above Felix's head. Felix, point up. Right up there. You have to hit that every 30 days, and it helps us out a significant amount, way more than you can imagine. And with that subscription, you get a special badge next to your name. You get special emotes in the chat. Like I said earlier, the new one is up. And so take advantage of that, people. But on that same note, we will try to prioritize your questions if the Twitch chat is really getting busy. And this is just a nice way to help support the show. So, for those of you in the Twitch chat, if you want to start throwing in some questions as Felix and I start kind of winding this this post-game show down, because we're going to have quite a few this week, aren't we?
Yep, we'll get into it, but we've got two more on Thursday and Friday.
So, Zenaz8 had a question.
Time.
Do we see Holzer in the next game?
I will take a bit of a softer stance on that. I think we see him in one of the next two games.
Well, they're playing back-to-backs. So you'd imagine that. You'd imagine that he's going to be in one of those two.
Well, I also think that there's an actual reason to get him in there because Del Zotto hasn't necessarily. I mean, maybe we see Del Zotto and Holzer. I mean, maybe at this point, Aikens wants to see every possible permutation of that third pairing. But my guess would be that we see Holzer come back in before we see Larson come out.
Yeah, probably.
Which means Del Zotto would be the guy to go, just because we have seen Larson and Holzer play well together before. And, I mean, I just don't – again, it's so early, and this is such a weird thing to kind of nitpick, but I just don't understand why they're not just sticking with that when it's working. It's a third pairing, you know? But early in the season, you want to find out what works and what doesn't, and I think that they're finding out what doesn't work for that third pairing.
Joshua's data asked, which night does Comtois go, and who sits for him?
So we're assuming he's playing then in that scenario.
Yes. I don't think they call him up if they're not planning on playing him in one of these games.
Well, okay. Here's the game where I see him playing. Friday against Columbus. So the Ducks play Thursday against Pittsburgh and then Friday against Columbus. I really think that they're taking the slow and steady approach with Comtois. You know, it went from 0 to 100 last year, where no AHL experience, all the way to playing in the NHL right away as a guy not even eligible to stay in the AHL at the beginning of last season.
Yeah.
And I think that now they're kind of correcting for that a little bit, and they're really trying to dial it back. And so I think that they're probably going to give him that second leg of the back-to-back.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Well, I think one of the two back-to-backs he's going to get. I think there's no doubt about that. I'm going for the cop-out. But I think the person that comes out,
fine.
The person that's going to come out is Max Jones.
Yeah, but the question was, which one does he play? You can't just say one of the two. It's like, yeah, sure, I could see that.
You're killing me.
It's fine. I'm not forcing you to answer. I'm just saying you didn't answer the question at all.
Fine.
That's fine.
But I will Cool. I will say Max Jones is the one that's going to come out for him.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that they probably don't want two of the youngsters on that left side, and so you're thinking that. Well, let me ask you this as a listener to this podcast, since I do listen afterwards, not because I want to listen to. Not because I want to listen to my own voice, of course, but because I want to listen to potential audio issues, potential verbal tics, things of that nature.
Yeah.
Do you think we see Nick Deslauriers in one of the next 2 games?
No. Maybe. Damn. I first wanted to say no, but now I'm kind of backtracking on that. Yeah, I think we see him in one of the 2. I think we see him either for Shore or Ritchie.
Okay. Yeah. So maybe against the Blue Jackets, we'll see Deslauriers and Comtois come in.
Yep. Piggy7 SWAT asked the question, Shore's been fine, but if the Ducks can put someone who shoots a lot on the Getzlaf-Kasha line, could we see or if the Ducks can put someone who shoots a lot on the Getzlaf-Kasha line, could we see Daniel Sprong on his off wing later in the year, or would Comtois be a better fit there?
I don't know. I really don't know when we'll see Daniel Sprong again in the NHL. It's really hard to say at this point. We'll just have to see. But yeah, I think that at some point they probably do want to get more of a shooter in that role, because so far with Ryan Getzlaf, we've seen more of, I guess, two-way guys, more playmaker type guys. At some point, you want to get someone there who's more of a trigger man.
Yep, and I think performance, as Joshua's data puts on our Twitch chat, depends on who does better in San Diego. I think that also is going to factor in. I think that you have essentially 3 guys now at this point with Sprong having gone through waivers. You have 3 guys kind of fighting for a very similar spot in Max Jones, Max Comtois, and Daniel Sprong. So we'll see. Stevie D asked this question, and this will probably be the last question for the night here, but said, do you think the power play will change or will they try something different? I don't think it's a terrible power play, but come on, we need some goals, people. So the Ducks have not scored a power play goal yet this season, but I think there were positive signs tonight, especially in that second period. Or no, I think I'm thinking of the third period when the Ducks were really working for those chances. They were really holding on to the puck, and I know there are people out there that really want to just see them fire it while they're on the power play, but they're working for that good shot, for that quality opportunity. And so I think it's too early to make any drastic changes. 10 games down the line, if they still don't have a power play goal, then maybe this is something we should talk about. But I think right now a little bit of patience is probably the best option, and let them keep working, let them keep getting their opportunities, and eventually something's going to find the back of the net. And once one finds the back of the net, there will probably be plenty more to follow.
So you're saying that the guy at the games in every crowd in every arena just yelling shoot constantly on the power play, that he's not right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, let's get into this question here by Infinite Jester. Question, how many games does Deslauriers get before the stealth tank conspiracy theories start?
CJ. Why did CJ have to start that last year?
Yeah, I don't think this is at all about the stealth tank.
No.
I think the Ducks see Deslauriers as a veteran that is a needed presence on a team full of younger players. So we should probably stamp that one out now before it catches fire.
Yeah. Yep, definitely. So I think that's going to do it for questions for the night. Oh, I remember. Sorry, there was one thing I did want to bring up. Speaking of things from last season, the turtle was not exactly a thing tonight. Yes, they did allow some shot attempts against and allowed more against than they had for. But if you look at how they played, they weren't exactly just dumping the puck in and circling back and really trying to protect that lead. They were very much kind of attacking, getting into the zone, trying to get chances. And we saw that later on in the game with them getting some chances to score and Jimmy Howard making some pretty good saves. And it's something that I really like to see. I absolutely despise the turtle.
Oh, so on that note, I did want to ask. So I don't know if it's just me, and maybe the Ducks have just been in this situation a lot in the first 3 games of the season, but is it near every opportunity they get when they're defending their own zone and there's an empty net on the other side that they just shoot it down and try to score? Because tonight they were not even trying to. Tonight they weren't even trying to dump it out of their zone, and I noticed that a little bit against the Sharks as well. So is this Dallas Eakins playing the probabilities and saying, hey, we can just as easily win the face-off, but if we score, then it's completely over?
Yeah, why not?
I don't know. I'm kind of liking it, though, because it's it's entertaining to watch.
Especially if the guys have their legs underneath them, why not do it? if they think they can keep going. But, I mean, I think it's going to be interesting to see if guys are gassed after or trying to kill off a game. If they're still going to do that or just going to do the soft dump to get a change. But if they've only been out there 10, 20 seconds, take your shot.
Yeah, I mean, you might as well. And then you get a little rest if you miss. So it works out.
I think that's going to do it, though, for tonight's podcast, unless you have anything else you want to talk about.
I mean, Ducks related, there's not really a whole lot else to talk about. No contracts, no signings. I mean, no nothing. I mean, what did you think of, just on a non-Ducks topic, what do you think of Patrick Marleau signing with the Sharks today?
Predictable.
Is that going to fix their now 0-4 start? The Sharks losing again, by the way,
the Sharks might not
the
be
Nashville
good.
Predators.
They might not be good.
It's a small sample. We got to keep that in mind, but they just look so bad in these losses. And this goes to a comment we just got in the Twitch chat here, but Ducks and Oilers at the top of the Pacific Division here. So are we going to start standings watch?
No.
3 games into the season?
No.
I think we have to.
No.
I think we just because it's so ridiculous. I think we have to.
No.
Wow.
No.
Just no love for the bit. I'm going to read out the standings because
why?
I care about this. The Ducks are second in the Pacific Division with a 3-0 start, along with the Edmonton Oilers in first and the Vegas Golden Knights in third. And the Sharks are 0-4. They've given up 17 goals in 4 games after just losing 5-2 against Nashville. So Patrick Marleau is going to solve all of that for the Sharks. Clearly, that's what they needed. Another old forward.
Ugh.
Jake just got no time for this.
I just really don't like looking at standings this early on in the season.
I mean, I'm kidding, right?
100. No, I know.
I don't actually mean. Okay,
I know.
Okay.
No, I just
as long as we're on the same page about that, then everything.
No,
else
I think you're doing it on purpose. I definitely think you're doing it on purpose.
I mean, now that I know it bothers you, I may have to keep doing it every game, though.
Why did I do this?
You're being encouraged by Stevie D in our chat to go to the dark side.
Why did I open myself up to this?
Go to the dark side.
The one thing I will make mention of that I think is something worth mentioning, talking about the too early watch, is John Gibson going to get some early Vezina buzz?
Okay, so we can't look at the standings, but we can pick award winners after 3 games.
Exactly.
Because
exactly.
that totally checks out. That's fine.
I knew you'd like that one.
Yeah, we should put an article up at Anaheim Calling, picking all of the award winners after 3 games.
Yes. Gibson for Vezina, Gibson for Hart.
I'm going to make a very bold claim here. If John Gibson maintains this level of play for the next 20 or so games, I can guarantee that he will have Vezina buzz because, 971 winning games. I feel like there's a pretty strong correlation with that and Vezina buzz. So going out on a limb, I know it's a hot take, but I'm feeling pretty good about it.
Sure. Yes. Sure.
I mean, you're the one that brought it up, so now I'm just trying to make it as ridiculous as possible.
I did this to myself.
Also,
Infinite Jester makes the joke, James Neal for the Rocket.
Yeah, for the Rocket. What does he have now? 4 goals in 4 games?
Didn't he have 4 goals tonight?
Did he?
Yeah.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
I thought he just had. Well, wait, hold on. That can't be real. Can't be true.
He had 4 goals tonight. So yeah, that is.
Oh my goodness! So he has 6 goals in 3 games.
Yeah. Zenaz8 says we do need more hot takes. It's been lacking so far this season. I don't have that many hot takes right now.
So he has 6 goals in 3 games.
He has more than Mantha now.
Yeah, it's gonna be James Neal and Anthony Mantha just battling it out for the Rocket Richard.
Exactly.
Tune in, everyone.
100%.
Yeah, we haven't had any hot takes. I mean, it's so early. We're really on our heels here, not wanting to say anything too bold. But hey,
you want to give a bad food take?
A bad food take. I don't have any bad food takes.
Sure. Okay, a food hot take. Food hot take.
Maybe that's my bad food take.
Food hot take.
I have no bad food takes. I heard someone say the other day, and this really struck me. It actually got me thinking. Someone said that all French fries are terrible, or that French fries are bad, just in general.
What?
So basically, no. So this was the claim. This was the argument. He said French fries are bad because if you think about it, 95% of French fries are bad. So therefore, if that many of them are bad as a percentage, then overall we can't call them anything but bad. So that got me thinking, because I love French fries just like the next guy. There are a lot of bad fries out there. Again, I'm not agreeing with the statement.
I very much disagree with that. I don't think there are that many bad fries out there.
There are some pretty bad fries. There are some pretty awful fries.
Look
no further than In-N-Out fries.
Get out of here. Leave.
Look no further than In-N-Out fries.
Leave.
I'm sorry.
Just
bland.
leave.
Bland.
Why do I podcast with you? You were raised in California.
If you want good fries, go to the Golden Arches. Go to McDonald's.
You were raised in California.
Yeah, but I mean, I love In-N-Out. I love In-N-Out burgers, but I don't think that their fries are that great. And there are a lot. Trust me, there is a very silent majority that agrees with me on this.
You're so wrong.
So, eat it.
You're so wrong. So wrong. I mean, here's my hot take. Although it's not really a new one, but it's the best one I can come up with on short notice. Del Taco's better than Taco Bell.
I mean, that's not that hot of a take. It's just questionable. Look, people are already agreeing with me in the Twitch chat about the In-N-Out fries.
Nah, you're wrong.
I mean,
50-50.
What's the argument? You can't just say I'm wrong. You have to provide a reason why.
Oh, the reason why you're wrong is their fries are good. You can also get animal-style fries,
okay,
which
you
are
can't
delicious.
just say they are good because they're good.
Yeah, also Del Taco fries are the best fries, though. You still haven't
said anything in support of In-N-Out fries outside of they are good.
Let's be real here. Be real here. Del Taco fries are the best. If you get them fresh and good, ooh, those crinkle cut fries are delicious.
How do you feel about Chick-fil-A fries?
They're good, delicious.
Yeah, I mean, there's just something about them. It's just good. Now I'm hungry. Okay.
All right.
We should probably get out of here.
Yeah, we should. So, really quickly before we get out of here, want to let all of you know about our Patreon drive, where we are doing a big drive this month of October to really try to hit our goals, to basically provide more and better content for all of you out there for our Patreon. For those of you that don't know, if you go to patreon.com/acpod is how you find our Patreon website, and basically on there you can support the show in a way that monetarily and financially does help us out significantly. You can just support the show at $1 at least a month, and with that you are supporting the show and you get exclusive to our Patreon exclusive Discord server where you can chat with us, chat with other patrons, and it's a good time. The big one is the $5 a month, and it doesn't have to be $5. It can be $10. It can be whatever you want it to be, but at least $5 a month. You get 2 Patreon exclusive episodes where Felix and I just kind of talk. We talk about whatever we feel like talking about, whatever you want us to talk about. It's a really fun time. We actually are probably going to record one this weekend. But so as part of our drive, basically we've kind of set some goals. And so for those of you that are patrons, if you want to up your pledge just for this month and then bump it down, if we hit those goals are happening. So at $350 a month, we are going to do a Patreon exclusive watch party with pictures of beer on us. $500 a month, we're going to do a live Patreon exclusive show. At $750 a month, we'll do 3 bonus episodes a month. So upping it from 2 to 3. So that's the real big one. At $1,000 a month, we'll do a watch party with a live post-game show. And then at $1,500, we're going to add another bonus episode, bringing us up to 4. So we've set some lofty goals for ourselves. We want to see how many people we can bring in, how many people we can expose this thing to. It's a really good time, and this is kind of mine and Felix's baby that we've really been working hard on, trying to really do some fun things with it. So by you supporting that really helps us out and supports us and really helps us grow and do some really fun and exciting things for all of you out there.
Yeah, and just to give a shout out here to the people who have made pledges this month in October. Infinite Jester 23, who is in the Twitch chat tonight, thank you very much with your pledge. Michael Morgan, John Gustanian, Sean Salisbury, McCann, Will Harrison, Matt Freeman, who made a very generous pledge, Blaze Morda, and James Hish. So thank you very much to everyone who has made a pledge. Definitely check that out. Once again, that's at patreon.com.
Yep.
/AC pod.
And so for those of you that cannot support the podcast monetarily on Patreon or on Twitch, we completely understand, and we're just happy to have you here. But a way that you can help us out that is free to you is by finding us on YouTube, subscribing and liking our videos there. And the other way is going on Apple Podcasts. And if you can subscribe to the show there, if you want to leave a rating or a review, we will read it on the show, and it helps us out a lot. And we've actually discovered that we've done pretty decently in terms of hockey podcasts in the United States. And so by you leaving that review and that rating, that really helps us get even more visibility and puts us up higher on the list of hockey podcasts. So we got a new one this past Monday from Job Eng. Educational and fun, 5 stars. As a more casual fan over the years who is interested now in diving deeper into all things Ducks, I'm so glad I discovered this podcast, learned so much about hockey and the Ducks organization from Felix and Jake and the occasional appearance of CJ. Great show. So thank you so much for that review. It really means a lot. And for those of you out there that haven't reviewed, want to have your voice heard, this is a way to do that, where we will specifically read your review on the show. So, yep. Oh, and really quickly, in terms of ways to support, Zenaz8 just subscribe to us on Twitch Prime for the 2nd month. So, thank you so much. Also, Felix,
Absolutely.
Felix, I've been told to mute you.
Hey, I've just been sharing my opinions in the Twitch chat. So, like Jake said, definitely join the fun after these games, because I'm just going off right now with some food opinions. For whatever reason, food just seems to get really strong reactions out of people, which is always a good time.
It's completely objective. Oh, Bob Shockey said again, just
you mean
resubscribed.
Subjective?
Subjective,
Anyway.
yeah, not objective. Whoops, wrong one. Come at me. Sorry.
It's been a long day.
It has. Yeah, Bob Shockey just resubscribed for his 4th month. So thank you so much to both of you.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay, so we got everything?
Yep.
Okay. Last thing, make sure to check us out on Twitter. Jake is on Twitter at ReindeerGames91. Just type in at ReindeerGames91 and then ask him, why is your username at ReindeerGames91? I think that's a good first interaction with Jake.
Why are you doing this to
I'm
me?
also on Twitter. It's just my first and last name with an underscore. Some people don't like underscores. At Felix_Sicard.
Make sure to
check us out there.
Tweet at Felix and make sure you ask him why he has the underscore.
Actually, there's a funny story behind that, which I would be happy to share if you would be so inclined. Tweet at me. Okay, that's gonna do it for us tonight, guys. The rails, we're not even off the rails now. The rails are just no longer in the picture. We're gonna leave before things get weird. We will talk to you again though on Thursday after the Ducks take on the Pittsburgh Penguins. That's gonna be another one of these earlier pods for you live folks, and then another one on Friday. Talk to you then.
Bye.